Well, well, well. Look who's back. Hopefully you enjoyed that last video. It's actually my first time I ever really tried to do editing, which was very interesting. And I have just learned that the video editing program I use can actually use green screen effects. So once this is done, it's going to be even worse than the other one. But on a side note, I'm going to bitch about Microsoft because this is Medic Yaps, and I'm going to yap about something very quickly. Microsoft Clipchamp is like one of the most obnoxious programs I've ever dealt with. Every single time I boot it up, it doesn't just boot up. It doesn't just show up and go, here you go, here's your video editing program. It goes, we can't connect to the internet. And you're like, okay, but I have the internet. And you click on retry, and it loads for like 10 seconds. Then it says can't connect to the internet. So I have to literally spam click the button, the spot where it says retry, and after like 100, like 5 solid seconds of me clicking it, it'll boot up. Like it'll take like 10 tries normally. Why does a fucking video editing program need to be connected to the internet? Which is even more obnoxious because there's been days where I don't have internet and I'm like, well, I could probably make something stupid in the spare time while I have power or don't have internet. And it's like, oh, well, we can't connect to OneDrive, so I guess you just suck. That's great. But anyway, onto the topic at hand. Um, I last video was the mobile suits of the 1 Year War, the original Gundam series, and I did mention I would like to do more, and so I figured I would do the vehicles because, as I mentioned in the last video, the vehicles aren't really talked about, and I think there's some pretty cool ones in the original Gundam series. Uh, Unlike last video, I'm going to try and split things up because I think doing both factions was not a bad idea. I mean, it's all in one video, and technically there's only like, 4 or 5 federations, so I guess it kind of made sense for there, but each faction has a sizable amount of vehicles that aren't mobile suits that I'd like to go over. I'm going to try and do these in a very normal order. I'm going to start off with the ground vehicles, like the tanks and stuff, and then I'm going to go into aircraft, and then I'm going to go into spacecraft. I would like to have one big, huge disclaimer, which might piss off one single person on the planet that probably won't watch this video anyway. I'm not going to include, like, the launches and the little shuttlecraft. They're just, like, I don't know. There's, like, 10 of them per series, and they're all different, but they all just, like, do the same function where it's like, oh, it's a ferry you see the main characters use in one episode, and then it never shows up again. Obviously, there's a bunch of vehicles in the vehicles and the vehicles in the vehicles. Did you know I do these all in one take and I don't like edit out like outtakes and stuff like that? That's why that gun tank bit was included in the other video because I thought it was funny. So I'm just sort of spouting out words out of my mouth. I lost my train of thought. Space buses. I'm not going to include them. There's only one I really saw in the list when I looked ahead of time that actually looks cool in my opinion. That's on the Federation side. So this will be the Federation vehicles. This is the Federation vehicle list. Um, there's only one little space bus I liked, and it looks like a space bus. It's pretty cool, but the rest I don't really care about, and I don't really think you care about. So we're going to start off with the ground vehicles, and going. I don't know. I think I'm going to just do alphabetically, but alphabetically in chronologically, the first one that is on the list is the anti-Zaku tank. Um, if I recall, this is only very briefly seen in the series, and it's in the very first couple of episodes. It's inside 7, and it's defending the Gundam research base. I it's a pretty goofy little thing. I really like the implications of it because it's called an anti. First off, anti-Zaku tank is just an adorable name. It doesn't even have like cannons. It has little like machine guns. Like this thing wouldn't do anything to a Zaku. It does a lot of good world building, in my opinion. This little goober, this little goofy little tank that only shows up in one episode, because it shows you that they that the Federation sort of is scrambling to make weapons to fight the Zaku's. They just sort of came out of nowhere. The I think it's Project V. I know that's like a major plot name for Gundam, but the V weapons haven't been created yet, and they're sort of struggling to defend themselves. They've only got the tanks and stuff to use and the bombers. And the anti-Zaku tank feels so much like it's so lashed together. It's so stopgap. Like we need where this thing's probably like a prime mover that they strap these two guns onto this casemate turret, this thin skin turret. I'm pretty sure you only see them just explode too. Um, Very minor vehicle, and it hasn't had too much love. I can't recall this thing ever showing up again, which is interesting, because a lot of the vehicles in the other series in the series also show up in a redesign and make them look really cool, as we've seen with the M61 and some of the other stuff. But this thing has been largely forgotten, which is kind of interesting to me. Uh, I do like the design, but I've probably talked about it more than it's shown up on screen, which is going to be for a few vehicles. I know there's one in particular, like me talking about it for more than like 10 seconds is more screen time that I got. But I do like this thing, and I like the lore implications. I don't know if that's the actual lore, but it gives me the vibe of that this is a stopgap vehicle that's mostly used for colony defense and places where it's like, well, we can't really fit a tank in here, and a two machine guns on a prime mover chassis is better than nothing, I guess. So it's a cute little vehicle. If we're gonna do the ranking, it'd be like 8 out of 10. I have a soft spot for vehicles. There's some mobile suits I'm probably like this. When we get to freaking Zeta Gundam, that's where like the actual shit opinions are gonna come into play. But I do have a soft spot for goofy little vehicles. So there's probably gonna be a lot of like eights, nines, and tens on this list and the Xeon vehicle list, because I have a soft spot for the little extra designs, these little world building pieces that they make that they have to add in. It just expands the world a little bit more. The Federation didn't have mobile suits for a while, so they were sort of running around with whatever they could. But I think that's it for the anti-Zaku tank. It's a neat little design. I wish it'd show up more. I wish they could do, a redesigned version of it or show what it would look like now. I might have to do it. That's what I'm thinking. But so yeah, the next vehicle. I guess I should save that one for last because that one's pretty cool. The next ground vehicle is going to be, and then we have the core system. I might save that for its own thing. I'll do that after the other one. So the next one is the oh, there's two of them. The missile buggy and missile car. Um, let's take a gander here. Okay, this is like another vehicle I'm pretty sure that shows up only in the first episode. It's one of the colony defense vehicles. Um, this thing is really goofy. It looks like a G.I. Joe vehicle. I like how it has the little Federation like V-fin symbol on the front, but it literally looks like a G.I. Joe vehicle you'd get, and there'd be like a Cobra guy in it. I cannot imagine being in an open-topped vehicle with a missile launcher. That seems like such a dumb idea. Pretty weird color scheme. You got like green rims and that it's almost like a brownish, like rust color. Um, I can't say I'm the biggest fan. It does fit the narrative of more, goofy little throwaway vehicle. I mean, I don't even remember where this shows up, and it might be in like Belfast based, or it might even be in like Jaburo. It's it's not really doing it for me. It doesn't even have a windshield. Like the freaking Gundam loved its buggies though. I mean, you had that whole bit in when they were chasing Ramba Rawl, and like Amuro goes AWOL and he goes to the town and cries a lot. There's a lot of buggies in that episode. There's like four. They have like the white base has like four different buggies Like you got options if you need to drive around, but all of the original Gundam series just had like little goofy cars for like civilians, and this is sort of like a military version. Um, I wouldn't drive this thing, that's for sure. And then I guess the other one is the missile car. So I guess this is the upgraded version. I'm not too familiar with a lot of these things, so I'm not going to be like, oh, I know exactly what mobile suit comes next. It's like, I might not remember this or not. Okay, the website I'm using isn't loading. Great. Oh, come on, really? Okay, there we go. Oh, that's that's better. That actually has a it's like I like that. That's really goofy, but it's goofy in a good way. It's like a 6x6. It's actually got an enclosed interior, which is good. You can't bring your buddy along. I guess you can put him. Maybe there's a little spot for like cargo next to the cab. I love the asymmetry going on here, though. It's pretty cool. Smaller amount of missiles, but they look like they're a lot bigger. I don't remember when this thing shows up either. Does it have a list? Let's see. It's a small vehicle used by first. Okay, so it might be also be another one that's like in the colony. There's a version 2 here. Oh, that's from Zeta Gundam, so we're ignoring that. But I like this thing. I like that green. That's a nice green color. If you don't like all shades of green, you're stinky.
Stinky.
Green's a good color. I like this green. Um, okay, I guess that's it for the missile cars. They're pretty generic. This video might go a lot faster than the other one. Famous last words. It'll be like 2 hours long. So the next one is, I guess the Federation doesn't have too many ground vehicles. Um, there are, there is one random thing I will mention. This isn't listed on this website, but I have picked up a book that has a lot of the concept art. And in the colony defense, the side 7 just has like a long tom, which is pretty cool. Good to know that that's still in effect, like 100 years. But we'll get to another one later that's sort of on the same lines as that. So I guess the next one is the Type 61. Now, I brought this up in the last video briefly about how they redesigned this thing. But frankly, I have a soft spot for the original design. Because, now they design it, it's a modern tank. It's a modern two-barreled, cool-ass looking tank. But in the original, it's a two-barreled brick trapezoid that's purple. Like, very, very goofy design, but I like the original design. It's got personality. I've thought about modeling it. There's a lot of these probably conventional. I'm like, I thought about modeling it just because some of these look really fun to try and like reimagine and bring to life again. Especially like very literally, because well, everyone does the remake, but trying to make the original design like look normal sounds like it'd be a fun job. Um, Famously, the Type 61 is a two-man tank, as shown in Gundam Igloo. It is a commander and a driver. The commander does the gunner as well. All the systems are automated, which is pretty cool. They explain how a two-barrel tank can work because if you like history and you like tanks and stuff like that, you know that two-barrel tanks means twice the effort into loading and gunning and whatever. They figured it out and they made it work. Um, It is funny because the original design for this has largely been replaced with the Igloo, the 8th MS Team and Igloo design. So you don't see the purple version all that often. But what is funny is if anything is ever relating to, like, in a video game, the One-Year War, especially when it's focused solely on the original Mobile Suit Gundam series, you'll see the purple tank show up again. It appears in Gundam Federation versus Xeon, and it's this purple version, and they kind of try and make it a little more realistic, which is pretty cool. I'll probably definitely use that as a reference. And then, as mentioned in the Char Zegok bit, one of these famously gets thrown in Jaburo at like Amuro by Char Zegok. And every single time Char Zegok shows up in like Gundam Versus, it just chucks the fucking 161 at you as one of its attacks, which is pretty funny. This design though is like a 10 in my book. It's just so goofy, so weird. I can't really see why you would hate it other than it just being so dumb looking. I can see how people can see this and be like, this is stupid, but I don't know. It's just so goofy. I love it. It's like a little baby gun tank. You can see where they got the influence of, well, we need two barrels on our bigger tank vehicle. All right, I guess this is the last of the ground vehicles. Okay, so imagine if you will an M3 half track, and it has a roof on it instead of being an open top vehicle. And on top of it, they slapped on and welded a Vulcan off of an A10 Warthog. Imagine that in your mind. If you can't, that sucks. Too bad. But imagine that in your mind. An M3 half track with the Vulcan of an A10 on it. That's literally what this thing is. Look at it. It's so over the top. It's bigger than the vehicle itself. Like, how does this drive? Um, this thing is great. I believe this thing shows up during the attack on Belfast base. And it's when the Gogs are attacking. Because there actually was a little plastic figure of this thing released in that side spirit line thing. And it came with the Gog, I want to say. So I want to say that's when it shows up. I don't remember when this thing shows up, but I like this is just another really over the top goofy design. This is the most over the top design because I don't know how that vehicle is driving around with that. I don't really care. The idea is so hilarious to me. Um, Another vehicle that's largely been forgotten as well. I don't think there's been any modern depictions of it in anything. I don't even think it shows up. It doesn't show up in any video games. It's probably just so inconsequential. But that's hilarious that the Federation just kind of strapped a giant Vulcan onto their half tracks. I love the little gunner like crane pod for him to use. This is a 10 out of 10 design simply on how goofy it is. Um, yeah, a lot of these I haven't had too much to say for, but this is just great. I love this thing. It's so stupid. So going on to the one I saved for last, we have the Big Tray class land battleship. Oh, the original line art does not do it justice. I haven't looked at it in a long time. Oh, oh, ooh. Yeah, they definitely cleaned this thing up. Um, Something I do like about Gundam is that they have land battleships. Land battleships are such a cool ass concept to me. It's completely bad in theory. You like if you want to make a big stupid tank, it'd just be a big stupid target. That's why the Rat wasn't made, obviously, because Germany didn't have any steel production. It would have been bombed to oblivion. They didn't have time to make it. You know the whole story. Maybe you don't. I don't care. But big tank is not good in warfare. You want smaller vehicles. And I mean, bigger tanks, I mean, obviously, like, the Mouse is sort of not really that good either. But, like, why don't we make a battleship tank? Well, it's because A, mobility, B, too big. See, there's kind of like no real point to it. But Gundam and a lot of anime have big land battleships, and those are always really cool to see. A big, stupid ground vehicle. You see all the little tanks driving around it. Sometimes they can launch aircraft and stuff like that. And the Big Tray can do that. It's a big hovercraft, and it's like a mobile command center. I want to say that's what it was mostly used for. I love the bridge design. I love the hover. The whole design of this thing is just awesome. This is a 10 out of 10 design in my opinion. You see them during the Battle of Odessa, and there's a really funny scene in one of the Battle of Odessas that I remember is it's right before the commercial break, and the Battle of Odessa hasn't really started yet. It's just sort of like, oh, the calm before the storm. Amuro's probably whining that Matilda died or something, and the Black Tri-Stars are like, "Ooh, we're gonna kill the Gundam," and General Revel's like, we need to kill these Xeon bastards and send them back to hell, back to space where they belong. And it's like, oh, it's all setting up for the battle. And you go to the commercial break, and it's got like Haro or whatever for the commercial break. It's like, oh, Gundam. And as soon as you come back to the commercial break, it's like bombs dropping and explosions happening, and things fucking exploding. And there's a big tray that crashes into a Dob Day. Like, it's insane. Funnily enough, the if you look at this line art, it's got these two big things poking out the front. They're like gigantic ass cannons. I don't think we ever see them in action, but they're supposed to be giant ass like frontally mounted cannons. Um, in later redesigns of the big tray, they sort of like stub them up. They look more like engine intakes. That's what I always thought they were, but no, they have these two giant ass main cannons. I mean, they already have the actual battleship. This thing is huge, by the way. Like, this doesn't look like that from the line art. And in a lot of media, especially the video game, they downplay the size of this. This thing is huge. This thing, like, you look at it in Igloo compared to the original series, they had like increase it by like 5 times. It is a monster. It is huge. It can like launch aircraft off the back end of it. But I've always loved the big tray. It's the big tray. The big tray is a funny name because it looks like a big stupid tray. Um, yeah, I've always loved this thing, and seeing it in the few times you get to see it in action, I always get excited seeing one because it's just such a cool land battleship design. I wish they made a model kit for it. I know that they do. Someone did like a resin kit for it, and a few of the other ones. They in Igloo introduced like a smaller version, and there's even a smaller version from a manga. But this is the other one thing I was thinking about is I don't know if the big tray was built during the war or if it was built after. It's something to think about with Mobile Suit Gundam. Was like with Origin, you see a lot of what came before mobile suits, and you had the M61A5s are the mainstay, the battle thing. But we don't see the big tray. But we see that they had very early on in the war that Xeon had their Gallic class land battleships, which were actually be able to use in colonies, which is shown in Origin, and they have their own land battleships, the Dobday. And once the war starts on the ground, once the invasion of Earth happens, you start to see that more in place. But the one thing I wonder is which of these land battleships came first? Was the Dobday created to be a mobile firing position, be their mobile command center, and then the big tray was designed as a counter to that? Was the Dobday designed to be a smaller counter to the big tray that the Xeon made because they knew that they were going to have to fight these things? It's something interesting to think about with the big tray. Um, or some, at least I think it is interesting. I would like to know, what was the purpose of this thing before Xeon came around? 'Cause I don't know if they ever go into like the Federation fighting anything on Earth. So why would you need such a big ass land vehicle? I mean, they do serve as mobile command centers, which is pretty cool, but they don't I don't think Gundam's ever really dived that deep into the lore. I don't think anyone really cares like why was the big tray built? So it's probably a question we'll never get, but it's something fun to think about that I'd like to think about. Um, as mentioned before, the big tray is a 10 out of 10 in my book. Land battleships are always cool, and you mostly see a lot of them with treads. You don't see too many of them with hovercraft. So that this thing can probably go pretty damn fast for how big it is, which is cool to see. Um, Definitely one of the cooler designs out of the original series for land vehicles, though. Alright, so, okay. Well, I had fun talking about the big tray now. Now we're gonna do a transition into from land vehicles to aircraft. And the best way I'm gonna do this is with the G series of, ugh, this is nonsense. All these G armors, G bulls, G bull easy, G fighter, G sky, freaking too much. Gundam wanted to be like not Transform. I don't remember. There was a super anime show, not a super anime, a super robot show that came out that had like the whole gimmick because you can make model kits out of this. This was the whole gimmick. It's like, oh, you can make the Gundam, and then the Gundam can split apart, and then it can become a plane or it can become a tank. It might have been like I don't think it was Power Rangers, but there was something that influenced them to make this feature, and then it was quickly phased out. I think it sort of came back at Double Zeta, but there's too many forms, and I don't think the animators really cared for it because as soon as the Gundam movies came out, they're like, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. It's the core booster. It doesn't turn into a tank." And now you have to deal with like weird alternate timeline stuff where it's like, which version did they use it actually? Did they use the G armor or did they use the core booster? Hmm. And then Gundam's like cheeky about it, where it's like, oh, the data might be wrong. Who knows what they actually used in the original because the Federation gave them both actually. You kind of have just like weird inconsistencies due to stuff like that where they just didn't want to animate all these stupid forms. So they just sort of like did some funny stuff there. But actually speaking into it, I'm gonna find the G Bull is the ground, and the G Bull is like the upper torso of the Gundam that's been converted into a tank. And as far as tanks go, this is a pretty goofy, lame tank. It looks like. What does this look like? It reminds me of something. Um, you can play as these in Federation versus Xeon, by the way, and they're pretty goofy there. I remember the G Bull's really fun because you just have the guns and you're just a little tank driving around, and the Zaku just jumps up on, smacks you in your tank, so you can't punch them, so you just can shoot them. I do remember the one thing I liked about it is that the shields actually account for being shields. So if you're driving around and you're aiming from the side, if they hit your shields, it actually blocks the damage, but they can blow up. And if you lose both your shields, you're just literally just a Gundam body on treads driving around, which looks really stupid. The G Bull for all these forms is I wouldn't say it's one of the better ones. Probably one of the middle ones because there's a few of these I'm like that's just hideous. It's a funny tank, I guess. And then we have the G-Bull Easy, which I believe is just the... That looks stupid. That's that's lame. That's lame. I don't like... No, no. This doesn't get a number rating. That's stupid, and I don't like it. I mean, it's probably the exact same thing without the shields, but, like, that's... I don't know. That's a bad angle. No, it isn't, because the guns are flipped around. So it's just a G fighter with arms and guns sticking. That sucks. I hate that. 0 out of 10. Bad design. I think that's our first 0 out of 10. Ugh. Um. So I guess we'll go to the G armor. We'll do the G armor. Oh God. That looks like it would be the leg of like a Voltron or Megazord. Like that plane. That's. Oh, that sucks. I mean, it's not terrible, but could you identify this as being a land vehicle or an air vehicle? I can't. I don't know what it is. It's the gun mounted to like a plane. Ugh. No, that's another no for me. That's another. That's like a. That's a leg out of Voltron out of 10. So we'll do the G Fighter next. So this is the original. So by itself, the G Fighter by itself is pretty stupid looking, but I actually like this. The guns poking out, the weird radar. It looks more like a plane though. Like I can see the idea behind it. If this was its own standard vehicle, it's like okay. It kind of hides the treads. The treads on the bottom were kind of funny, but it plays into the other forms. Um, this is pretty good though. This is the vehicle that can canonically go. This thing You look at it, it's a brick. It's a brick with guns. This can canonically go faster than the SR-71 according to a source, I'm pretty sure. Do with that information what you will. Um, this is also the vehicle that Slayer pilots, depending on which version. He's either piloting this or the core booster when he attempts to become the Big Zam Suppository and is killed in action. And then Amuro just uses his beam rifle instead and shoves it up its butt and shoots it and starts murdering Dozel. Irrelevant to the G fighter, other than that it dies. This is like a 7 out of 10. I don't really love it, but there's parts to it I like. I can see the direction behind it. There's also a bunch of variants of this thing, which is funny that they mass produced this thing and were like, turn it into a bomber, turn it into a fighter, turn it into what is this, assault landing type? Oh my goodness, they made it longer and now it has like hind missiles and giant ass torpedo. That actually looks pretty cool. I don't know what is this part of MSVR. Yeah, I don't know when the hell I'm ever talking about that. That's like a 9 out of 10 in my book, even though it's not even in the original series. But I'm gonna mention it here. So that's a G fighter. So what do we have? The G Sky. The G Sky. That is the core fighter mounted to the G fighter with the Gundam mounted into the center. I, I don't even know what to say about it. I frankly think the core block system, while very interesting, is kind of stupid. At least all these different forms and stuff. It's just really goofy. I actually really like the core fighter system. That's pretty cool. Um, I have no words for this one. I don't. It doesn't. It's not even like registering me to react to it. I like how in this line art the fins are wrong. They're different proportion, but I do the exact same issue, so I have no room to talk. I don't know. I can't even give that a number. I can't give these number ratings. They're just so dumb. That's like a 5. So, and then lastly, once we're finally done with these, we have the Sky Easy. Okay, now that removes the little bit of Gundam, and it just seems to be the core fighter onto the G fighter, and that looks kind of cool. That looks like it would be a ship in a top-down space shooter. That looks pretty good. That's like a 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10 in my book. I like that. That one actually looks like an aircraft. I can actually see the understanding behind that. I like the double fin system, thanks to the core fighter. So yeah, that's the the core system. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think they're too goofy for me. I do like the G Bull. It's pretty funny though. I have a soft spot for it. I believe that yeah, that's all of them. There's a lot to. I'm not really keeping track here, so I'm just going off the list. So next, I guess continuing with the core system, we'll do the core fighter. Core fighter's cool. I've always liked the idea of mobile suits having emergency like escape ships built into them. And the core fighter's the original, and it sure fits the bill of being a core fighter. It does look like it. I like the little like foldable mode it goes into as the Gundam. I like how it's collapsible and it sort of just folds into itself. I also like the color scheme. It's not too overbearing because the other ones have hints of yellow and we got that darker blue. But I do really like the nice white, red, white, and blue going on here. Pretty good design. It's like a 9 out of 10. And maybe you can make it a little more sleeker looking, but it's supposed to be like a chess section, so I can't really fault them. There's a really funny bit in Gundam Versus where if you play as the gun tank, you get an ability where you can shoot the core fighter off. I forget if this is a big plot relevant thing, but you can shoot it off as a projectile and attack people, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I do like the core fighter. It's pretty cool. I wish it would show up a little more often. I know It's like random. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes they're like, yeah, whatever. And then we have the core booster, which is the vehicle that they designed because the Gundam movies didn't want to deal with all of the nonsense of the core block system. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's basically the one G Sky Easy, but more streamlined, none of the darker accents. Uh, Weird concept to be like, yeah, we can convert the core. Honestly, it's a pretty novel concept to basically convert the core fighter and attach it to the this body here and make it as a weapons platform. I got up to get a drink, and now I don't remember where I was talking about or what I've talked about. I do know I'm talking about the core booster, but I do like the design. It's basically a cleaned up G fighter. I probably already said that. Interesting enough, this seems to be what Gundam remembers more than the core block system, because you don't really see any of the other core systems really show up again. But the core booster has had a few variations. In 8th MS Team, they made a sequel. They made a core booster 2, and it's basically a more stylized, streamlined version of this, which looks pretty cool. And then there is a intercept version from Igloo, which is designed to defend the space battleships as they're launching from Jaburo, which is very interesting. That'd be a fun job. Probably not, but you'd be flying around and being launched at Mach speed to defend a space battleship launching. That sounds fun. But yeah, the core booster basically is just a more streamlined, better idea than the whole core block system. So this gets like a 9 out of 10. I like it. It's pretty fat though, but pretty cool. So now we will be continuing with the standard aircraft of the Earth Federation. And they've got a lot, surprisingly. And starting off, I guess this works out really well. We have the Gunperry, which is a transport aircraft that the White Base can store. And I do like it. I like how they designed an Ekranoplan to carry a big box. That's what I see when I look at it. It looks like a loon. I do like goofy cargo aircraft, and I do like this thing. The weird layout of the VTOL engines is very odd. That especially the frontal one, but I like the big Ukranoplan engines in the back there. Um, you don't really see this thing show up too often either. Actually, no, it's shown up in a few shows. It's been in 8th Mess Team. It's been in Thunderbolt. They remastered it for the Kukuru's Dones Island movie. Um, it makes has that ever have they ever explained how the white base fits this thing in there? Like, is it in one of the? It has to be in one of the feet because this thing can store mobile suits. That thing's got to be really foldable if it can fit in the white base.
More defenseless.
Maybe it wasn't stored in the white base. I don't know. I don't think they explain it. Maybe there's a scene of this thing popping out of the white base. Um, the colors are very odd, though. I mean, a lot of the weirder stuff. I mean, the weird green with the different colored cargo crates just odd to me. Um, the one thing I remember most about the Gunperry is there's the one episode where Kai gets a girlfriend and the girlfriend's a Xeon spy, and they sort of like learn the position of each other where the girl is helping Xeon because she needs to feed her kid or not her kid. They're not I don't know they're not her kids. They're her younger siblings or maybe they were orphans. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched that episode. Um it's not one of my favorites, but it's freaking apparently important enough that they showed it in the movie even though I just rewatched basically that episode. Anyway, so the whole point of the episode is that the girl realizes she likes Kai, and she's like, "Oh, Kai's an Earth Federation soldier, but he kind of doesn't like the Earth Federation." He learns, oh, this girl's supporting Xeon, but she's not really doing it because she likes Xeon. It's just out of necessity to survive, and they stop the sabotage of. That might be the Grabro episode, actually.
Look, Kai! The
But
enemy's coming straight at
they
us!
stop the attack on the light base, and as they're celebrating, the frickin' chick falls out of the plane because she didn't put a seatbelt on. The gun parry doesn't have seatbelts, and it's plot relevant. It doesn't. It causes a character death. That's all I remember about this thing mostly, and that episode. Like they probably were like, "Oh, we wanted to be a sad moment." I'm just laughing my ass off. It's not funny, but it's just funny to me. Does not have seatbelts for some reason. I mean, it was in the cargo bay, but like I'm pretty sure there was a seat in the cargo bay that she's sitting in at one point, and I guess that didn't have a seatbelt. But he does some maneuver and she flops out. It's old anime has moments like that, but Gunperry is a goofy design. It's not my favorite, but I do appreciate it for the weirdness it wants to be. So that's like a 7 out of 10. Weird plane cargo plane crate thing. Yeah. So next on our list is the Deprog. I freaking love the Deprog. So a big part of Gundam that I absolutely adore is with the creation of the I don't did they create it or find it with Minovsky particles. They jam radar and they jam satellite imaging. So what it basically did was it reverted warfare from just shooting missiles at each other and using satellites and space weaponry. It reverted it back to traditional warfare. You cannot use long-range missiles to attack targets because Minovsky particles will prevent the guidance systems from being functional. So the Earth Federation switches back to traditional warfare with traditional long-range bombers and tanks on boots on the ground, more stuff like that than just we're gonna sit in our ass and just shoot missiles at Xeon. No, you gotta fight them, otherwise you're gonna lose. And so with a lot of these designs, it's a return to traditional warfare, and they design a lot of very interesting aircraft to fill very niche roles. Like they have an AWAC plane, and they have traditional bombers. They got a lot of interesting fighter designs, and the Deprog is designed to be their strategic heavy bomber. And this thing looks like a B-29 and the space shuttle had a child. And there is something about this thing just I absolutely adore. I do not know why. Because in the original line art, it's like orange accents with like bright purple. And then every other appearance of it, which hasn't been that many, it's like a nice like green, and then there's like even rarer in like video games. They make it like a they do like the classic like B-29 B-50 era like solid gray with like black underside. It looks good. I love this thing's design. I'm a big fan of goofy looking aircraft, and the Deprog is really cool in my opinion. I don't know why. I just love this thing. Looks just such a cool design to me for being like a heavy bomber, and you barely see it in the original series. I want to say it only shows up at the Battle of Odessa, and you only see it like twice. Like there's a scene where the big tray is flying, and you see one, or the big tray is not flying. If the big tray is flying, that's very problematic. But it's when the big tray is flying along the ground, I guess, and it's the Earth Federation army moving forward to attack the Xeon. I'm so excited about this, I cannot speak. And you see like one Depth Rock fly over. I think that's all you see of it in the series. But I love this thing so much I modeled it. I did a 3D model of this thing, and I just love this design. It's so weird. It's so cool. I wish we'd see more of it. And there's a few times you see like a redesigned version of it for modern stuff, and they make it look even cooler. Um, Bandai, please make more of this. Put it in more shit. I know like traditional bombers don't exist anymore, and they don't do anything with any of the classic like aircraft. But like, oh, it's so cool. It's such a cool ass plane. Um, Alternatively, it's It only shows up in a manga, but according to the 8th MST manga, alongside the Deprog as the heavy bomber, the B-52 is still in service by the Earth Federation, which is hilarious on multiple levels. But Deprog's a 10 out of 10. I love this thing. It's just it's goofy and it's blinking you'll miss it, and obviously, of course, I like it and have modeled it. Um, Very cool plane design. Please show it more. All right. So speaking of next, I mentioned the AWAC plane or EW. People say AWAC. I say AWAC. We have the dish, the very appropriately named dish, and this plane is literally just a flying radome. It is designed to fill the role of, sort of not like a recon plane. It is basically a recon plane, but it's an early warning air control aircraft. And because Minovsky particles ruined everything, they have to rely on these guys to find out what the hell's going on. And very odd, there has been disc shaped aircraft in real life. None of them were jet powered, though. So theoretically, this plane would work. I don't know why the Earth Federation made it so garishly colored, though. Orange and yellow with blue wingtips is pretty goofy. I believe it has a very, very brief appearance in 8th MS Team, and it's more of a green. But that also makes sense because it's more like Vietnam. And even funnier enough is that even with the advancements, in mobile suits, and they start developing AWAC mobile suits that have like big dumb radar heads. You got the AWAC Jig and you got the AWAC Zack. In Gundam Unicorn in 0096, almost 20 years after the 1 Year War, there's addition like the Nail Argama it launches one. I don't remember if it's the Nail Argama, if it's the Rockhalum, but there's addition Unicorn. But Unicorn loved its like random throwaway references, so it's not surprising. But it's funny that this thing shows up of all things, and it launches out of a spaceship in the atmosphere. Design wise, it's pretty basic. So it doesn't. I like the idea behind it, just a flying radome. I like the split cockpit design. It looks like a bug. It looks like a turtle. It looks like a big flying flattened turtle. That's what it looks like. Goofy design. I do like the goofiness, and I like the roll, and I like it. But I can't say I love it though. It'd be like an 8. I don't know if it's an 8. It's goofy. Let's give it an 8. I don't know. No one cares about it. I sort of care about it. So next on our aircraft list, we have the Don Escargot. This is Oh, I forgot about this thing. This is the anti-submarine warfare plane that's hunting the Xeon subs. It was freaky plane. This website doesn't have too good of a image of it. Let me pull up a better one because there's a few better ones. This thing is goofy. I've someone did a 3D model of it. And seeing this thing in like any other perspective than its line art, you're like, what the fuck is this? It's got like a Douglas double dome cockpit. Douglas aircraft is still around and making it. The turret placement's weird. It's like fat. Like the Deprog like looked good as a heavy bomber. It looks like I said, it's got the fatter body and it makes sense. But then you look at this thing and sort of like, what the hell's going on here? It's very odd. Very odd aircraft design. Very odd. I I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's just a weirdo. It's a weirdo. That's a weirdo plane. I appreciate it for being a weirdo plane, but I don't very much like it, so I'm gonna give it like a 6. I can't really talk about it. It's cool that there's a submarine warfare plane though. I can't think of any other time that ever comes up in sci-fi ever. So kudos to that. That gets an extra points. That's probably why it'd probably be like a 5. Because of that, it's like a 6. Design's weird though. It's got like gull wings and fins everywhere and guns poking out of everywhere. It doesn't scream anti-submarine warfare plane. This screams like weird ass like bug space fighter, but that's not what it's supposed to be. Next we have the Dragonfly, which is a cool little canard plane. I do know when this shows up. It's very briefly. It's
It's a
in
propeller-driven plane.
the
I'm not
Battle
real
of
certain, but
Edessa.
from what
It's
I
because
recall, I don't think it's one of
the
the
guy
submarine
that's
planes
lead
on
not in
Earth.
Revel. There's another guy in
Check.
Edessa that's a
I've
traitor,
got it.
and his little traitor buddy
Dragonfly?
uses
A
this
small
to
fairy
go
plane
to
used by the
Xeon
Federation.
Lines. But
Why
what's
is
really
it
cool
on
about
a
this thing
Xeon
is that
base
the
of all
Big Tray
places?
uses it. The Big Tray has a little launch pad on the back end of it that can launch this, and I love it. It's a totally got to be an homage to battleships of old having little float planes that they would use to scout ahead. I really like the idea of that with the Big Tray. That A, it's used as a ferry for people, but B, you can use it for that. And you actually see that in Igloo. They use it to scout ahead, and it gets gunned down by a Dobner. But as a canard plane, it's pretty standard, but I do like it. It's pretty generic though. I like the color scheme. It actually gets like a worse color scheme in Igloo. It's like orange and blue, maybe. It's not been a minute. I rewatch that scene like all the time. Um, I do like it though. Interesting that it has locked landing gear. Makes it feel a little more real, but I do like it, even if it's a little generic. It'd be like a 7. Next, we have the Fan Fan. They got some dumb names for these things. The Fan Fan, another goofy design. It's like a weird attack helicopter hovercraft thing, famously piloted by Lieutenant Woody when he's fighting Char and he dies and gets exploded in this thing.
Hey, what's that hovercraft
Um,
doing over here?
I have been thinking about 3D modeling this thing actually because I like this design, but I would kill to see what Igloo would do with it. I would love to see them redesign this thing and kind of clean it up and make it good. Give it a different color scheme. Don't give those weird orange accents. Like make it a nice like olive drab. Make it look like a Vietnam era helicopter. Put like a shark mouth on the front end of it. Give it guns coming out everywhere. It would look so cool. Um, that almost looks like what the. Now that I'm looking at this, this website has the Thunderbolt version. That's almost what it would be sort of looking like. It's an interesting interpretation of it. But yeah, it's got the little helicopter gun. I do like this design. I do like this design enough that I would like to model it. So that gets points in my book. It's like an 8. I would rather see my version of it though, because the original is sort of the color scheme's a little but I do like it. It needs work though. That's the thing. So maybe another 7 out of 10. I like the idea. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I don't have too much to say about it. Next, we have the Toriaris. I think that's how you say that. I do not remember where this shows up. I guess it was in Luna 2. So that's cool that it's a dedicated space fighter. But I barely remember seeing this thing when it shows up. And there's not too much art of it either. So that's another thing. It's shown up a few times in a few mangas, but this thing seems to be been largely forgotten. I do like the space fighter idea, though. There is a model from it for whatchamacallit, uh, Gieran's Greed, and it looks like a brick, but it also looks like it also has the same designation as the core fighter. It's FF4 Toriaris, and that's the FF7 core fighter, FFX7. And you do see in that 3D model, you do see a little bit of design lineage from the core fighter, which I do like. Do not have too much else to say. I'd love to see this thing show up a little more. I like to see a lot of these aircraft show up more. Speaking of aircraft show up more, this is the Fly Arrow, famously seen in the Cuckoo's Stone Island episode for 5 seconds. It's the whole reason the stupid episode happens is because this one of these things gets shot down, and it crash lands on the beach, and it's emitting a SOS, and Amuro goes and checks it out, and he gets attacked by a dome, and then that fun little escapade happens, but it's the only time you see it in the series. It's dead on a beach like a whale. Don't ever get to see any other angles of it. I think like one manga showed it again. The plane's got a spoiler though. This is like the most plain looking plane in Gundam in the original series, which is funny because the rest have all these weird shapes, and this thing looks like a little F-16 with a spoiler. Uh, I do like it. It's pretty cool, pretty neato. Check. Yeah, it's just down on the beach. Yeah, there's some other angles of it from a manga, I guess, and it looks pretty rad. It's a pretty cool ass fighter design. This would be like an 8 out of 10, even though I've probably talked about it more in the span of like a minute than it's shown up in a series, which is pretty funny. That's like an 8. Next we have the Fly Manta, and this is the one that seems to escape the grasp of obscurity the most. Uh, Weirdly enough, very weird design. I like the beginning of it. You could definitely see the core booster in it, which is kind of interesting. Maybe they took the core booster like and redesigned it to house the core fighter, and that's how they got the core booster from it. But yeah, most evidently, the weird, very drag-inducing nose section. Those are missile launchers. Very odd. It's also very odd that the Federation, would make their. This is technically a fighter bomber, I believe. Very interesting to make your fighter bombers very bright yellow. But it's the '70s. You don't really care. Your main death machine is painted red, white, blue, and yellow. I don't think you're gonna really care if anything else is painted. Maybe they had the idea that 1930s America did, where we weren't at war yet and we didn't really give a shit, so we were painting aircraft and everything in all these bright and garish colors for like air shows and stuff for flying just to show them off because they make it look good and pretty. And then when war started, we were like, oh, we're doing olive drab and nothing but olive drab. But you don't see that. But maybe that's the Earth Federation's idea behind these are strange colors. As for the Fly Manta, this thing actually shows up in a lot of games pretty frequently. Even as recent as GBO2's little side project, Code Fairy, you fight some. So this vehicle is not forgotten, weirdly enough, and it showed up in the modern Cuckoo's Done's Island, and it's been pretty redesigned, and it looks. Eh, the cockpit looks too. Oh, I guess it's alright. I do like how they tried to sort of translate the weird missile pods a little better with the sort of flattening it out. I think it's probably the best way you could describe these things. But I do like the fly manta, even how goofy it is. But that weird missile system's a little odd. I do know in the original series they show up in the Battle of Odessa right after Death Rock shows up. You see a few shots of them blowing up Xeon bases and stuff like that. It would be like a 7 out of 10 though. I don't love the design, but I like it a little bit. And next we have the Medea, the famous Earth Federation transport plane. Pretty interesting design. It's another cargo plane, box plane. It's got a little more. It's got some weird design choices, like the weird bottom spoiler and the interesting vertical takeoff and landing fans and the landing gear, which is pretty cool. I don't think an aircraft has ever done that, but I do like that. And if you're a Gundam fan, you're probably very familiar with these things, as if you play GBO2, these are the bases. You gotta go into one of these things, and I've fought around these things too many times and gone into these things too many times, and it's freaking blasted by a dude with a rocket launcher. Once again, odd choice to paint your cargo plane that's carrying very important cargo, but bright yellow. Probably not the best idea there, guys, but design is good. Design is it's very unique. That's what I like about it. It's a very unique cargo plane. I like the lines in it. It's got really clean. It's very utilitarian, But once you remove that box, you have actually really clean lines on this aircraft. Also, six engine, which is pretty cool. Very unique plane. This is like a 9 out of 10. It's a very cool cargo plane. And then next we have, we'll be out of aircraft. Let's see. Yes, we are out of aircraft. So, one last little detour, very briefly. There is a surface naval warship, the Himalaya class. You see these a few times fighting the submarines. I believe the one submarine fighting plane takes off from these things, and it's it's just that one Russian plane carrier. Yes, a plane doesn't. Yes, indeed, a carrier does indeed carry the plane and has the planes on it. It's just that one Russian carrier with the side ramp that they use like for their forgers and shit. But now it's got a giant ass battleship cannon on it. Another vehicle that actually reappears fairly frequently. It showed up in unicorn and it fucking died on the Shamblo, bursting into it and killing it. Um, and it showed up. It shows up in GBO too. It's the port bases have them. You can blow them up there. The Himalaya class seems to only exist to be exploded by aquatic mobile suits. And funnily enough, it keeps showing up despite all this. As for the rating, it's just a boat. I'm not really that big on surface warships. I like how big and stupid the main cannons are. Like, it's very out of proportion. Uh, it's a boat out of 10, I guess. Speaking of ships, now we're gonna go. Oh my god, I just slapped my glasses off my face. Now we are going to go into the spaceships. Starting off, we have the Columbus class. The Columbus class is. It started off as like a cargo freighter, and then as the war progressed, they converted them into fighter carriers, and then as the war further progressed, they converted them into mobile suit carriers, and that's what we've seen them as ever since. They've reappeared. I think they show up in Zeta. I want to say. I'm pretty sure there's an upgraded version of them. I know it looks the same. But as far as cargo ships and carrier designs go, this thing actually I really like. It looks like a non-stupid version of the Quasar Fire from Star Wars. Like if someone actually designed it with brains instead of making a big stupid cargo bay that something can just fly into and explode half the ship. Um, the Columbus class is pretty good. It's very carrier designed. It very fits the bill for me. It's smaller. It's like a little light carrier. I do like it. Another vehicle, if you're a big Gundam fan, you're probably very familiar with because these are the bases in space battles in GBO2. And I love fighting people in the engines that hide in the engines and kill me when I'm blowing the base up. Very fun. This would be like an 8 out of 10 though. Maybe a 9 out of 10. I do like the warships of the Earth Federation for the spaceships. Next we have the I will do it in size. So we're going to go to the Salamis class. Now, I am an absolute huge sucker for space battleships, like just a battleship in space. And the guys that did Space Battleship Yamato came over and they worked on Gundam after leaving that. And you can very easily see it with the Earth Federation. Um, I love the Salamis and I love the Magellan, which I'll cover here soon. Salamis is very iconic to me. I love what they've done to it over the years. They haven't really changed too much to it, but I love the blockiness of it. I love the ship design. I love the bridge. I love the how it's just covered in guns. I really that's a big pet peeve I have with spaceships and like sci-fi is that they sort of just like they're very frugal with weapon placement. And Mobile Suit Gundam ships just as far as the Federation go, they will plaster these things with guns. They're everywhere. And it'll even be in spots where it's like, look at those two frontal AA guns. It's like, how does ammo go to those? Who cares? It's funny. It's just got guns everywhere. The Magellan's even funnier when I get to that. Salamis is like easily a 10. They're very cool. I've tried drawing them. I can't get the shape of the front down. Um, I do like the Salamis though. I can't really talk. I love the weird little like side fins on it. These like red bits and stuff like that that are on the side. It also has little goofy side bridges, which are pretty funny too. Igloo was pretty faithful when translating it. They basically just cleaned up the design, added a shitload of panel lining and stuff like that to it, heavily cleaned it up. Salamis looked pretty good. Pretty cool design. So next we will go to the Magellan. The Magellan is the bigger brother to the Salamis. It is the space battleship. I believe the Magellans are, I'm sorry, the Salamis are destroyers, and the Magellans are battleships. They're the heavy hitters of the Earth Federation forces. And it's another space battleship. I love how it has like multiple angles going on with it. Like there's different different attack decks to it. Like it's built on multiple planes. Like it's got like you look at it from the standard axis and okay, space battleship, and you look at it from the side and it's got like the little like AA guns surrounding the side bridges, and then it's got guns arranged to it. I love the guns in the front that don't make any sense and wouldn't be really logical. I when I design spaceships, I think like I might have like put a gun somewhere. I'm like, oh, there's no room for ammo. Like I don't know how this would work. How would this work? And every time I think, I just think, oh, this the Magellan has two battleship turrets like stacked on top of each other, basically. Um, Bad excuse, I know, but I do like this design. It's very weirdly proportioned in the original. You get some really oddball shots. There's also like a weird color discrepancy where sometimes this thing's like a nice silver, and other times it's just like green, just like completely green. Um, Once again, Igloo cleaned up this design pretty good, made it pretty cool looking. The one thing I do like about it though is the I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh, it has this part in the frontal section, right behind the two main frontal guns, where it's got like a bit of a curve shape. And Igloo redefined that, and it's like a boat hull. Like it's almost like part of like the Yamato's frontal bow section, which is a really interesting design. It looks even more like a space battleship, like a literal battleship in space. I do like this. I like both of them. They're both really good. I have the model kit. I need to build it. Earth Federation ships, both of these get 10 out of 10. They are very cool spaceship designs. And next we will have the oh, I guess we have the ship itself. We have the white base. Um, Weirdly enough, I feel like I wouldn't really like the white base because it looks very goofy. It's like a Sphinx spaceship. Like I know they keep calling it like the Trojan horse, and there's another name for it. Like I think they call it like even like unicorn or something like that. But this thing always looked like a Sphinx to me. It looks like it's because it's got like the frontal feet, and then the back engines form like the hind legs, and then the bridge is the head, and it's got the wings. It's a Sphinx warship. Um, I do like how the feet are launch pads, though. Launch units. The white base is too iconic for me to hate, though. There's definitely some better reinterpretations of this design, but this thing's like almost too iconic for me to hate. It's so unique. It's such a unique spaceship design. It's very iconic. I can't hate it. Um, I wouldn't say it's 10 out of 10. Maybe like 8 out of 10. Because I don't know. I don't know what you can really add or change to the design to make me hate it. It's just too iconic. Where I feel like if I wanted anything changed, it would just like ruin aspects of it. I love the jutting bridge. I love the big guns that come out of the side of it, and it can go in and out of atmosphere, which is pretty cool. So that is not all the spaceships. We have one last level one. We have the public class. And these things I really like. Another very goofy design. These things are ridiculous. They're basically like fortress destroyers. They show up at the end of the series. They're both at the Battle of Solomon and the Battle of Abaku, and they just shoot these big, stupid ass missiles at the place. Like you'll see like 100 of them, and then fire off all their missiles and blow the shit up out of the frickin' fortress. Another largely forgotten design. I don't think there's really been any attention given to it, but I really like it. I like how goofy it is, and then I don't know if there isn't any art of it online. If you notice it's got these really long landing strip, the landing legs, and you notice how it's got so many lines going down it. Those actually segment and they collapse upwards, so it shrinks down and you can land. Like it doesn't have these big goofy landing legs. And once again, I don't know why your weapon is painted very brightly yellow, guys. Especially in space, you should be painting that like black. But I love the goofiness and overtopness of the public class, and that's another design I wish they'd show a little more because it's pretty unique. I mean, you could show it up in I don't know, blowing up a Xeon Remain Force or something like that. Show more of these goofy things, Bandai, please. Or maybe I just need to. Maybe they do, but I just need to read more manga. Maybe that's my issue. And so, let me do one last go through. That is all but one. I've saved one last vehicle for last. And it is actually a very, very, very important vehicle that has been largely forgotten by the Gundam fandom, which is insane. It is in one of the most pivotal moments of all Gundam history. And I don't see any fan art of it. I don't see any mention about how iconic and important this is to the franchise. And you might be wondering, what is this vehicle? You know, he's talked about the white base. He's talked about all these other things. What exactly could he be talking about? I mean, he saved it for last. It's got to be cool. And I'm talking something vital to the franchise. If it was not in the show, we would not have Mobile Suit Gundam. Amuro would not have been able to get to the Gundam. He wouldn't have gotten aboard. He wouldn't have fought those Zaku's in Side 7. This franchise wouldn't have happened. You're not asking. Medic, get to the point. What are you talking about? What are you yapping about? And what I'm talking about is the trailer. The frickin' trailer. The trailer that the Gundam sits on inside 7 when it gets attacked. This thing had not been there. They couldn't have carried the mobile suit around. So who knows what could have happened without it. It's very iconic. It's in the famous scene where the Gundam takes off for the first time. It's sitting on it. And yeah, why is there no fan art of the trailer? Now, you want to hear something? You want to hear something really funny? You're gonna laugh. If you're a Gundam fan, you're gonna laugh so much about this. You're gonna laugh your ass off. Is there a mobile suit or something you've always wanted a model kit of? You know, there's probably something out there you're like, oh man, I would love to have, you know, I, I'm trying to think of one in general. I wish I had a mobile suit. I wish they would make, the version Ka G Self. You know, we've been waiting that for years. Or maybe you're like, man, I saw that master grade Kshatriya prototype a few years ago, and like that would have been awesome to have. Or maybe you want more Victory. Maybe you want more Gundam X. Maybe you're the one person in the world that wants a Gallus J or Polygon high grade. I wonder who that is. But let me tell you something. If there's still a mobile suit out there that you want a kit of and you haven't had yet, just rest knowing that they made a model kit of this thing in 1/44th scale before they made that. Yeah, screw you. The trailer got a mobile suit kit than before. It is 12 o'clock at night. I'm very tired. Um, the trailer gets a 10 out of 10. I can't fault it. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's the peak design, and without it, Gundam would not be the same. So, that is the Earth Federation vehicles. Wow, we went 4 minutes over the other one. I talked more about random ass vehicles than I did mobile suits from the original Gundam series. That's insane. Shows you how much I care about this franchise and its random ass vehicles no one cares about. But I do hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure I did a lot of very cool editing and funny jokes along the way. Hope you laughed at them. I'm going to end this off once again with words of advice. Do not try the Sonic the Hedgehog beer at St. Petersburg breweries. That is all, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.